What up, everybody? Ever since arriving in Atlanta, Meech has run across obstacle after obstacle, problem after problem. And even though Meech has taken many L's while in Atlanta, so far he's been able to bounce back with just as many wins. The beginning of episode 8 also addresses this, as it showed a quote from Terry Flannery that said, "At the end of the day, it was all about business and nothing personal. I counted the wins and the losses." And we saw the ups and downs of the game from the time Meech and Terry stepped foot in the ATL. Meech met up with a dealer named Earl that he met through K9, who wasn't able to get them any work in the drought, but introduced the brothers to a local dice game. But the problem was that the game was fixed, so Earl and a lady named Goldie scammed Meech and T out of all the money that they had. But Meech and T got their get back at Goldie, forcing her to bring them to a dice game with the same fixed dice so they could win their money back, plus. And Goldie did just that, as she introduced Meech and Terry to a dice game ran by a guy named Big Mike. And in this dice game, they won enough money to buy 5 birds from Ty Washington in a drought that they flipped to 10 using a whip method that they learned from Ty's friend, Pint. So either though Meech and T took that initial loss when arriving in Atlanta, they were able to leave on top with everything that they came for, except that they had made an enemy with Big Mike, who was asking Goldie about who Meech was. But Goldie wouldn't give Meech's name or any information about him to Mike, making her his enemy as well. So when Meech arrived to Atlanta at the end of Season 2, this time moving there to live, Big Mike showed up gunning up the club. Meech and Goldie were able to gun Mike down, but because of Mike's connections, Goldie had to get out of town. I also wonder if Mike happened to show up at the time Meech was there, because he was stalking the club, waiting for Meech to show back up. And I'll get back to this storyline in a minute, because I don't think we've heard the last of this, and there's a good chance that we'll be introduced to Robert Fulton in one of these last 2 episodes of Season 3. But before Meech moved to Atlanta, he brought the whole Detroit crew there for Freaknik. And at Freaknik, he met a local dealer named Dice that he started supplying that had a pipeline in Atlanta and Arkansas. But during this trip, Big Meech took a big L as his friend Ty Washington was killed after we got our first look at Remi Ransom. We got our first look at Remi at Freaknik when the PA member Shane disrespected the girl that Remi was there with. Remi fired at Meech and them outside of Magic City when he killed Ty, after Claude told Remi that Meech was there to set up shop in Atlanta. So those shots were warning shots to Meech that he wasn't just going to be able to show up in Atlanta, set up shop, and be the king without a war for the throne. But by the time Meech returned to Atlanta to live, things had changed, and it was no longer Remi's city, because the Miami Killerz were more powerful than the Techwood crew, because they had pure weight coming in through a Colombian connect, and the MKs had taken over the city. And after Meech saw the shootout between the MKs and the Techwood crew, he tried turning to Glock to form an alliance against Techwood, thinking that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But Glock didn't even want to have a conversation with Meech, seeing him only as competition. And after Meech found out that an alliance with Glock was off the table, he took another loss when Remi dropped off Dice to Meech and the crew in the club parking lot, keeping in mind that Dice had a pipeline in Alabama and Arkansas that we could potentially see Meech tap into in Season 4. But because of all the violence and war, not to mention the fact that the Techwood crew was starving with the MKs and BMF as competition, Meech was able to flip Remi's number 2 Claude, convincing Claude that he could become the king of Atlanta. So I asked the question, what's more important, being the king of the city or surviving the game? Because in the game, one wrong move could either be your last or cause you to spend a significant amount of time locked away in prison. So Claude agreed to betray Remi and work with Meech, but he told Meech that he would have to tread lightly. Another mistake you can't make in the game is moving too fast, because you'll be more prone to make a mistake, like trusting the wrong person, for example. Or getting greedy and letting your eyes get bigger than your stomach, because Claude likely made both of these mistakes, as we saw him taken out by Remi in episode 8 when he went to talk to the other Atlanta leaders about joining BMF. So Remi was able to find out about this meeting and cut Claude's water off one way or another. Like I said, I think it's because Claude didn't tread lightly enough and one of those leaders wasn't to be trusted and told Remi what was up. Most likely it was the cat named Sharp that Claude mentioned to Meech, telling Meech that from what he could tell, Sharp would rather unite with Remi against BMF and the MKs. So if Claude was smart, he would have worked with the people he knew he could trust to take out Remi before he made any other moves. Because Claude should have known that the word was going to get back to Remi about his coup. But because the fact that Remi demonstrated with Claude on the spot letting the other leaders know how dangerous he is, killing someone he raised up like a son without even blinking an eye, all the other Atlanta leaders quickly fell in line. So now everything is coming together for Remi after uniting with the other Atlanta crews, either though he lost his number 2 and it could prove to hurt Remi, either though Claude planned on snaking Remi, he had been right by Remi's side all those years helping him. But while Remi got the win, escaping Meech and Claude's debt trap and uniting with the other Atlanta leaders, Glock and the MKs were about to take losses on losses. Their first loss came when the Red Dogs raided the Techwood projects, forcing Glock back to Miami to regroup. And I was told by somebody who used to live in Techwood that they ran the real Miami boys out of Techwood for good in 1993. So this could possibly be around where we're at on the current timeline. And a bigger question is, have we seen the last of the Miami Killerz in Atlanta? I also read that the real life Miami boys were in Jacksonville, Alabama, and some other places also. So it's a chance that after Glock goes back to Miami to regroup, he decides it's best to plant his flags in cities with less competition instead. This wasn't the only loss the MKs took in episode 8 either, because before Glock left Atlanta, he ordered his number 2 Taka to take Meech out. But Taka wasn't able to hit his target and got thrown out the window and killed by Meech in self-defense. So we might have heard the last of the MKs in Atlanta, but we already know that Meech and T are going to have to deal with them on their home turf of Miami in episode 9. But Meech still has to worry about Remi Ransom when he gets back to Atlanta. Also, that same person who used to live in Techwood, who said the MKs were ran out in 93, also told me that Techwood used to be ran by a guy who went by CB. So this could possibly be who Remi is based on. But when Meech was at the club thinking he was waiting on Claude and the other Atlanta leaders for a peaceful meeting, Remi showed up to the meeting instead after sending Claude's head to Meech on ice. And the conversation between Meech and Remi could be a big clue to the direction this beef is going to go into next. After Meech and Remi each threatened each other, Remi let Meech know with the MKs hemmed up that Techwood was his again. But Meech laughed in Remi's face and said, "And then it makes you wonder, don't it? Why was Claude ready to leave you and come to me? You see, it's only a matter of time before everybody realizes what he did. They don't need you. They need me." So either though Remi runs things and gets all his respect out of fear, is Meech right, and it's only a matter of time before the other crews go where the bag is, and that's on the side of BMF, especially when they see Meech doesn't fear Remi like everybody else does. But at the same time, the person who said they used to live in Techwood also told me Meech never sold anything out of Techwood. Keeping in mind that by 1996, the Techwood projects were completely demolished for the Olympics. So Meech might not ever be able to take control of Techwood, but could we see Meech taking over as King of Atlanta simply by doing what nobody else could do, like I talked about to start the video, by simply surviving the game, because it's not as easy as it sounds. And before I go, I mentioned Big Mike's connection to Robert Fulton earlier in the video. Goldie told Meech that if Robert Fulton finds out that he helped her take out Big Mike, that he would find Meech and skin him alive. Keep it in mind that Greedy knows that Meech was involved in the Big Mike shooting because he snitched on Meech already about this to the GBI. So I think that Green will turn to Robert Fulton next, trying to get revenge on Meech and setting the stage for Season 4. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.